The silence in the great chamber felt heavier than gravity itself. Dr. Rebecca Stone clutched the datapad containing Earth's formal request, her knuckles white against the metal surface. Around her, 47 different species filled the curved amphitheater, their forms ranging from crystalline beings that chimed softly when they moved to massive creatures with too many eyes and limbs that defied easy counting. She had rehearsed this moment for months during the long journey from Earth. Every word had been carefully chosen, every argument refined through countless simulations. But standing here now, surrounded by civilizations that had mastered space travel when humanity was still discovering fire, Rebecca felt the weight of her entire species resting on her shoulders. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics, "I come before you as a representative of Earth and all humanity. We seek membership in this great alliance and request immediate assistance against the approaching Devour fleet." A sound like grinding metal came from the Centauri section. Chancellor Vorth, a being that resembled a walking tree made of dark stone, leaned forward on his platform. His voice rumbled through translation devices embedded in every seat. "The humans wish to speak of the Devour fleet as though they understand its nature," Vorth said. His tone carrying what Rebecca had learned was amusement among his species. "Tell us, small creature, what do you know of threats that have consumed entire star systems?" Rebecca straightened her spine. "We know they are 3 months from our solar system. We know they travel in biomechanical ships that can adapt to most conventional weapons, and we know that every species in this chamber has run from them at least once." A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the assembly. The sound came in many forms. Musical tones from the crystal beings, clicking from insectoid creatures, and low rumbles from species too alien for easy description. "The human speaks truth about our retreats," said Ambassador Krell, whose blue-scaled form shifted colors as she spoke. "But there is wisdom in survival. Your species has existed for what, 50,000 years? Some here have walked the stars for millions. We understand when a fight cannot be won." Rebecca activated her datapad, projecting holographic images above the chamber floor. "This is what Earth looks like today. 8 billion people, hundreds of cultures, thousands of languages. We may be young, but we are not weak." The images showed Earth's cities, its armies, its space installations. To Rebecca, they represented the peak of human achievement. To the Council, she realized with growing horror, they looked like toys. "Primitive projectile weapons," observed Chancellor Vorth. "Chemical rockets that barely achieve light speed fractions. No energy shields, no quantum manipulation, no consciousness transfer capabilities. Your species has not even mastered basic matter reorganization." "We offer other strengths," Rebecca pressed on. "Human innovation has no equal. We adapt faster than any species on record. Our military history shows we excel at asymmetric warfare and creative problem-solving." "Your military history," repeated Ambassador Krell, her scales shifting to what Rebecca's briefings had indicated was contempt. "Yes, we have reviewed your files. Constant warfare among your own kind. Nuclear weapons used against civilian populations. Environmental destruction that nearly rendered your world uninhabitable. This is what you offer as strength." Rebecca felt heat rise in her cheeks. "We learned from those mistakes. We united when faced with external threats. The same drive that led to our worst conflicts also led to our greatest achievements. The Devour fleet has consumed 43 civilizations in the past 1,000 years," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Rebecca turned to see a floating mass of luminescent gas that pulsed with each word. "Species with technology you cannot comprehend. Beings who had mastered death itself. What makes you believe your primitive weapons and violent instincts would succeed where they failed?" "Because we don't know how to quit," Rebecca said, the words coming out stronger than she had intended. "Every species here has told me about their great retreats, their strategic withdrawals, their wise decisions to flee. Humans don't retreat. We dig in, we fight, and we keep fighting until there's nothing left to fight with." Chancellor Vorth's laugh sounded like boulders tumbling down a mountain. "Admirable stubbornness, perhaps, but the universe cares nothing for determination when faced with superior force. The Devour fleet approaches your system because we have guided them there." The words hit Rebecca like a physical blow. "What?" "The fleet follows certain gravitational markers we provide," Ambassador Krell explained, her tone matter of fact. "Paths of least resistance through space. We simply adjusted their route to pass through your territory rather than the vegan colonies. A simple matter of practical mathematics. 40 billion vegan lives versus 8 billion human lives. Rebecca stared at the assembled beings, finally understanding the true nature of their response. You're not just refusing to help us. You deliberately sent them to destroy us. We made a logical choice, said the gas creature. Your species contributes nothing to galactic civilization. The Vegans have provided crucial advances in medical technology that have saved trillions of lives across hundreds of worlds. The choice was obvious. You don't even know us, Rebecca said, her voice rising despite her attempts to stay diplomatic. You've never given us a chance to contribute. We know enough, Chancellor Vorth interrupted. Your petition for membership has been reviewed and denied. Your request for assistance has been reviewed and denied. Your species will face its fate with whatever primitive courage you possess. Perhaps some will survive to serve more worthy civilizations in the future. Rebecca looked around the chamber one final time. These beings commanded technologies that could reshape matter with thought, traveled between stars as easily as walking between rooms, and commanded the loyalty of thousands of species across the galaxy. And they had condemned humanity to death with the casual indifference of accountants balancing a ledger. When this is over, she said quietly, remember that you chose this. Remember that you could have gained allies and instead made enemies. Empty threats from a doomed species, Vorth replied. The session is concluded. As Rebecca made her way to the chamber's exit, she heard the council members already discussing other matters. The fate of 8 billion human lives had taken less than an hour to decide. But something burned in her chest as she walked. Not just anger, but a fierce certainty that they had made the worst mistake in galactic history. Humanity would remember this day. And the council would learn exactly what they had awakened. The emergency session had been called within hours of Dr. Stone's return to Earth. World leaders filled the United Nations Assembly Hall in New York, while millions more joined through secure quantum links from every corner of the globe. The SAO, air itself seemed to vibrate with tension as Rebecca finished her report. President Martinez of the Americas Union was the first to break the heavy silence that followed. They deliberately sent this fleet toward us? That's correct, Rebecca replied, her voice steady despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. The Galactic Council views us as expendable. 8 billion lives mean nothing to them compared to protecting their more valuable member species. Prime Minister Chen of the Pacific Federation slammed his hand on his desk, the sound echoing through the chamber. 47 civilizations, and not one of them spoke in our defense? None. They see us as violent primitives who contribute nothing to galactic society. Our technology is laughable to them. Our culture is beneath their notice. And our destruction is acceptable collateral damage in their strategic planning. Admiral David Cross, head of the Combined Earth Defense Force, stood slowly. His weathered face bore the scars of conflicts spanning 3 decades, from the water wars to the liberation of Luna Colony. How long do we have? 3 months, maybe less. The Devour fleet travels faster than our initial projections suggested. Cross nodded grimly. Then we don't have time for politics or pride. Dr. Chen, what's the status of the emergency protocols? Dr. Lisa Chen activated her holographic display, showing Earth's current defensive preparations. Underground cities, sprawled like vast ant colonies beneath major population centers, orbital weapon platforms hung in space like steel flowers. Transport ships moved in endless streams, carrying civilians to the most defensible locations. Phase 1. Evacuations are 60% complete, she reported. Deep bunker construction is ahead of schedule in most sectors. The orbital defense grid is operational, though I'll be honest, against the technology the Council described, it's mainly psychological comfort. What about the special projects? Asked Director Hayes of the Global Science Initiative. Chen's expression grew more serious. Project Prometheus is showing promise. We've managed to unlock some of the genetic modifications that our scientists theorized about for decades. Enhanced reflexes, improved healing, increased cognitive processing under stress. The first test subjects are adapting well. And the AI integration program? More complicated. The quantum consciousness interface is functional, but we're seeing unexpected results. The AIs aren't just following programming, They're developing something like intuition. Almost like they're learning to think like humans rather than pure logic processors. Admiral Cross studied the data streams flowing across the displays. The Council made one crucial mistake in their assessment of humanity. They looked at our technology and assumed that defined our capabilities. They never bothered to understand what makes us dangerous. Which is, President Martinez asked. We don't fight fair, Cross replied simply. Every other species they described follows logical military doctrine. They retreat when odds are against them. They surrender when defeat is inevitable. They accept reality as it's presented to them. He gestured to the displays showing Earth's frantic preparations. Look at this. 3 months to prepare for an enemy that's consumed 43 civilizations. Any rational species would evacuate the planet and hope some survivors could rebuild elsewhere. Instead, we're digging in for a fight we can't win with weapons that shouldn't work. Dr. Stone leaned forward in her chair. The council members seemed almost proud of their strategic retreats. They spoke of wisdom in knowing when to run. I don't think they comprehend a species that simply refuses to lose. Then let's make sure they learn, Cross said. Dr. Chen, accelerate all research programs. I don't care if the test subjects are volunteers or military personnel. We need enhanced humans ready for combat within 60 days. Admiral, the psychological effects of the modifications are still unknown. We could be creating unstable. Doctor, Cross interrupted gently. In 3 months, psychological stability will be the least of our concerns. We need soldiers who can fight things that terrify civilizations with million-year head starts on us. Prime Minister Chen pulled up intelligence reports from the outer colonies. What about the captures from the probe encounters last month? Cross smiled grimly. Captain Turner's raids on their scout ships gave us more than we hoped. We have functioning samples of their biotechnology. Our engineers are reverse engineering everything from their propulsion systems to their weapon interfaces. Any luck with their communications? That's the interesting part, Dr. Chen interjected. Their technology isn't just biological, it's partially telepathic. The ships respond to thought patterns, not manual controls. But here's what we discovered. Human thought patterns are chaotic compared to other species. Where most aliens think in linear logical progressions, human consciousness jumps around, makes intuitive leaps, processes multiple contradictory ideas simultaneously. How does that help us? Their systems can't predict human behavior. Every other species they've fought thinks in patterns their biocomputers can analyze and counter. Human pilots in captured ships are almost impossible for their systems to track or anticipate. Admiral Cross felt something like hope stirring in his chest. So their greatest advantage, their ability to adapt to enemy tactics, becomes useless against us? Potentially. But we need time to test the theory, and time to train pilots who can interface with their technology without losing their essential humanity. President Martinez stood up, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had unified 3 continental governments during the climate wars. Then we give you that time. As of this moment, Earth operates under martial law. Every resource, every facility, every citizen contributes to our defense. The underground cities can hold maybe 2 billion people, Director Hayes warned. What about the rest? They fight, Cross said simply. We evacuate who we can, but this isn't about survival. This is about proving the Council wrong. They think we're primitive because we fight among ourselves. They think we're weak because our technology seems inferior. They think we're expendable because we're young. He looked around the room at the assembled leaders of humanity. Let's show them what 8 billion people can accomplish when they have nothing left to lose. Let's show them what happens when you corner the most successful predator species in Earth's 4-billion-year history. Dr. Stone thought about Chancellor Vorth's dismissive laughter, about Ambassador Krell's casual explanation of humanity's deliberate sacrifice, about the floating gas creature's certainty that human determination meant nothing against superior force. They're expecting us to fight like civilized beings, she said quietly, following rules of engagement, protecting civilians, limiting collateral damage, following the conventions of galactic warfare. That's their second mistake, Cross replied. We're not civilized beings fighting a war. We're humans fighting for our species' survival. And there's a very important difference. As the session concluded and leaders returned to their nations to oversee final preparations, one thought echoed through every human mind. The Galactic Council had given humanity 3 months to prepare for war. They would learn that 3 months was more than enough time for 8 billion humans to become very, very dangerous. Deep space sensors detected them first, massive biomechanical shapes emerging from the void like tumors growing in the darkness. The Devour fleet had arrived at the edge of human space, and their appearance defied every assumption Earth's military planners had made. Captain Alex Turner watched from the bridge of the stealth cruiser Defiance as the enemy ships materialized on long-range sensors. Each vessel looked alive, pulsing with organic rhythms while bristling with crystalline weapon arrays that seemed to grow and reshape themselves as he observed. "Count?" he asked his sensor operator. 47 primary vessels, sir. Each one approximately 3 kilometers in length. Hundreds of smaller craft that appear to be breeding from the larger ships. Turner had spent 30 years in Earth's Navy, from the asteroid mining conflicts to the Mars Independence War. He had seen ships destroyed, crews lost, battles that seemed impossible to win, but nothing had prepared him for the sight of living warships that spawned their own attack craft, like some nightmare version of reproduction. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," reported his communications officer. "It's everywhere. Every frequency, every quantum channel, even the emergency beacons." "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge didn't sound like it came from any single source. Instead, it seemed to emerge from the ship itself, from the walls and the air and the very atoms around them. It spoke in perfect, emotionless English. "We are the Devour. We have consumed the Altarian Empire. We have consumed the Silicon communes of Vega. We have consumed 43 civilizations across this galaxy. You will surrender your worlds, your technology, and your biological material. Resistance will only delay the inevitable." Turner looked at his crew, 23 men and women who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Their faces showed fear, but also something else, something the Galactic Council had never bothered to recognize in humanity. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Sir, you heard me. Open a channel to the entire Devour fleet." His communications officer's hands trembled slightly as she complied. "Channel open, sir." Turner stood up, straightening his uniform. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 8 billion people who had decided that death was preferable to surrender. "This is Captain Alex Turner of the Earth vessel Defiance. You want our worlds? Come and take them." The response came immediately, filled with what might have been confusion from the hive mind. "You offer resistance. This is unexpected. The Council species informed us that humanity would submit upon seeing our fleet." "The Council doesn't speak for us," Turner replied. "Never has, never will. You want to know what humans do when faced with impossible odds? We fight anyway. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are fragile. Your biology is inferior. You cannot hope to prove it," Turner interrupted. The first attack came within minutes. Biomechanical fighters swept toward human positions like a swarm of metallic insects, their weapons charging with energy patterns that sensors couldn't fully analyze. Earth's outer defense grid activated. Missile platforms, laser arrays, and particle beam weapons that represented the peak of human technology. The results were devastating. Human weapons barely scratched the adaptive armor of the Devour fighters. Energy shields absorbed laser fire and grew stronger. Missiles were intercepted by defensive systems that seemed to anticipate their targeting patterns. Within an hour, half of Earth's outer defenses had been destroyed. But Captain Turner wasn't watching the destruction. He was watching the patterns. "Helm, take us into the asteroid field near Jupiter," he ordered. "Sir, that's directly toward the enemy fleet." "Exactly. Weapons, prepare the special packages Dr. Chen provided. And remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to learn." The Defiance moved through the asteroid field with practiced ease, using the rocky debris as cover, while Devour fighters pursued. Turner's crew had trained for this scenario for months, learning to use human intuition and creativity to navigate spaces where larger ships couldn't follow. "Enemy fighters are having trouble tracking us through the asteroids," reported his tactical officer. "Their sensors seem designed for open space combat." "Good, that's useful information. Now let's get some more." Turner ordered his ship to perform maneuvers that violated every principle of safe space navigation. They dove between asteroids with clearances measured in meters. used gravitational slings around gas giant moons, and employed tactics that relied entirely on human reflexes and spatial intuition. The Devour fighters followed, but their biomechanical forms seemed less adaptable to the chaotic environment. Several collided with asteroids while trying to match human maneuvers. Others became confused when Turner's ship suddenly reversed direction, using techniques borrowed from atmospheric flight patterns. "Sir, we're in weapons range of one of their scouts," his tactical officer reported. "Launch the capture pods." The special packages Dr. Chen had provided weren't weapons in any traditional sense. They were modified mining pods equipped with quantum entanglement devices and manned by volunteer teams wearing the new enhancement suits. Their job wasn't to destroy the enemy scout, it was to capture it. The operation succeeded through pure audacity. While Devour fighters focused on the Defiance's evasive maneuvers, the capture pods latched onto a scout ship using magnetic grapples and cutting tools designed for asteroid mining. The enhanced human crew fought their way inside using weapons that shouldn't have worked against alien technology. But they did work. The biomechanical corridors of the scout ship proved vulnerable to human weapons, not because of superior firepower, but because the ship's defensive systems couldn't anticipate purely human tactics. Where other species would have used energy weapons or advanced technology, the humans brought shotguns, explosives, and hand tools. "We have control of the scout ship," reported Sergeant Rita Lopez over the comm. "The biocomputer is trying to interface with our neural patterns, but it's confused. It keeps expecting logical thought processes and getting human chaos instead." "Can you fly it?" "Ma'am, I'm a former shuttle pilot from the Mars colonies. I can fly anything. But this ship, it responds to thoughts and emotions, not manual controls, and it really doesn't like human thoughts." Turner smiled grimly. "Bring it home, Sergeant. We have a lot to learn from our new pet." The Defiance escaped the asteroid field with their captured prize, but not before Turner had gathered crucial intelligence. The Devour fleet was powerful, adaptive, and experienced, but their experience was with civilizations that fought logically, predictably, and with concern for minimizing losses. Humans fought like humans, chaotically, creatively, and with a complete disregard for what should be possible. The biomechanical ships that had adapted to counter 43 different civilizations kept trying to predict human behavior and failing. As the Defiance limped back toward Earth with their captured scout ship, Turner opened a channel to Admiral Cross at Earth Defense Command. "Mission accomplished, sir. We have a present for Dr. Chen's team. And Admiral? Tell the Council's monitoring stations that humanity sends its regards." The first battle had been a defeat by any conventional measure. Human losses were severe, and the enemy had barely noticed the damage inflicted in return. But Turner understood something the Galactic Council had never grasped about his species. Humans didn't measure victory by immediate tactical success. They measured it by what they learned, what they adapted, and how much stronger they became for the next fight. And the next fight was going to be very different. The Devour fleet had expected to face another civilized species that would follow galactic conventions of warfare. Instead, they had encountered 8 billion humans who were about to show them that there were no rules when fighting for survival. The captured Devour scout ship hung in Earth's largest orbital research facility like a sleeping predator. Dr. Lisa Chen ran her hands along its biomechanical hull, feeling the strange warmth that pulsed beneath the crystalline armor plating. 6 weeks of intensive study had revealed secrets that changed everything humanity thought they knew about advanced technology. "The neural interface is unlike anything we've ever encountered," she explained, to the assembled team of Earth's best minds. "It doesn't just read thoughts, it tries to integrate with them to become part of the pilot's consciousness. But human brains are problematic for their systems." Colonel Sarah Martinez, leader of the Enhanced Soldier Program, leaned forward in her chair. The genetic modifications had changed her in subtle ways. Faster reflexes, improved healing, heightened awareness that made her seem more predator than human. Problematic how? Every other species the Devour have encountered thinks in linear patterns, logical progressions from point A to point B. Their biocomputers are designed to mesh with that kind of consciousness. But human thoughts are chaotic, contradictory, creative. We think in loops and tangents and sudden intuitive leaps. Dr. Chen activated a holographic display showing brain scan comparisons. When other species interface with Devour technology, their minds and the ship's consciousness blend seamlessly. When humans try it, we don't just control the ship, we confuse it, overload it, sometimes drive it temporarily insane. Admiral Cross studied the data with the intensity of someone whose species' survival depended on understanding every detail. Can we weaponize that confusion? We already have. Project Hybrid has produced our first generation of human-piloted Devour ships. They're not pretty to watch in action, but they're effective. The ships perform maneuvers that violate their own design parameters, because human pilots think of possibilities their original creators never imagined. On the other side of the facility, Commander Peters demonstrated one of the hybrid vessels for a group of military observers. The ship moved through space like a living thing experiencing a seizure. Sudden stops, impossible turns, acceleration patterns that should have torn it apart. But it worked, and worked well enough to outmaneuver traditional Devour fighters. The biocomputer keeps trying to tell me I can't do what I'm doing, Peters reported over the comm, so I just think about something else and do it anyway. Drives the poor thing crazy. Colonel Martinez smiled at the display. Her enhanced soldiers had shown similar results when testing captured Devour weapons. Equipment designed to interface with logical alien minds became unpredictable and devastatingly effective in human hands. What about the quantum disruptors? Admiral Cross asked. Dr. Chen's expression grew more serious. That's where things get interesting. We discovered that the Devour fleet's biotechnology has a critical vulnerability. It relies on quantum entanglement networks that connect every ship to the hive mind. Disrupt those connections, and their coordination falls apart. But the quantum disruptors shouldn't work against their shielding systems, observed Dr. Park. The project's lead physicist. They shouldn't, Chen agreed. According to every model we can build, Devour shields should absorb quantum energy and convert it to strengthen their defenses. But human-built disruptors don't work according to alien models. We build them wrong by galactic standards. Chaotic, inefficient, theoretically impossible, and that makes them effective. Admiral Cross felt a familiar sensation, the same feeling he'd had during the liberation of Luna Colony when his forces had achieved victory through tactics that military textbooks said couldn't work. We're not just fighting with captured alien technology. We're fighting with human interpretations of alien technology. Exactly. Every piece of Devour equipment we've studied works better in human hands than it did in theirs. Not because we understand it better, but because we understand it differently. The proof came during the Battle of Europa Station. The Devour fleet had expected to overwhelm the human outpost with the same biomechanical precision that had crushed 43 civilizations. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented in galactic warfare. Human ships moved in patterns that defied tactical logic, piloted by enhanced humans whose neural modifications had awakened instincts buried in their genetic code. Colonel Martinez led her soldiers in boarding actions against Devour vessels, fighting hand-to-hand with creatures that had never faced an enemy willing to engage them in close combat. The enhanced humans moved like apex predators unleashed after millennia of restraint. Their modified physiology allowed them to match alien strength while retaining human creativity and unpredictability. They fought with captured Devour weapons that responded to human thoughts in ways their creators never intended. But the real surprise came when the human fleet unveiled their secret weapons. Ships that looked like hybrid nightmares, part human engineering, part captured Devour technology, part AI consciousness that had learned to think like humans, rather than follow logical programming. This is Admiral Cross to all. Devour fleet vessels. He broadcast on open channels as the battle raged around Europa. You came here expecting to face another civilized species. Another logical, predictable enemy that would follow galactic conventions of warfare. You were wrong. The response from the hive mind carried overtones of something that might have been confusion. Your tactics are inefficient. Your ship movements violate fundamental principles of space combat. Your weapons should not function against our defenses. That's the point, Cross replied. We don't fight like civilized beings. We fight like humans, and there's a very important difference. The tide of battle turned as human forces demonstrated capabilities that shocked even their own command. Enhanced soldiers not only survived direct combat with Devour creatures, but began winning those encounters. Hybrid ships piloted by humans outmaneuvered biomechanical fighters that had dominated space warfare for millennia. Quantum disruptors built with human inefficiency penetrated shields that had been considered impregnable. Most shocking of all, Human casualties were far lower than projections had suggested. The genetic enhancements hadn't just improved human physical capabilities. They had awakened something primal, something that made humans incredibly difficult to kill when fighting for their survival. "Sir," reported Captain Turner from his new command ship, a hybrid vessel that looked like the product of a fever dream. "Devour forces are beginning to withdraw from the Europa sector. They're retreating." Admiral Cross stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Devour fleet, which had never retreated from any engagement in recorded galactic history, was pulling back from a fight with humans. "Hive mind, this is Admiral Cross. Why are you withdrawing?" The response came after a long pause, and for the first time, the collective voice of the Devour fleet carried overtones of uncertainty. "Your species does not fight according to established patterns. Our adaptive systems cannot predict or counter your tactical decisions. This is unprecedented." "Welcome to humanity," Cross replied. "We specialize in unprecedented." As news of the victory spread across human space, something else was happening. Monitoring stations throughout the galaxy were picking up the battle's communications. Species that had fled from the Devour fleet for centuries were watching in amazement as humans not only held their ground, but forced the seemingly unstoppable force to retreat. Dr. Stone, monitoring galactic communications from Earth's diplomatic center, smiled as she read intercepts from Council space. The same beings who had dismissed humanity as primitive were now demanding emergency sessions to discuss the human anomaly. The species that had laughed at Earth's plea for help were about to learn that they had made the worst strategic error in galactic history, because humans who had been forced to enhance themselves to adapt alien technology and to fight for their very existence weren't content to simply survive. They were ready to take the fight to anyone who had contributed to their near extinction. And that included every member of the Galactic Council. Chancellor Vorth's crystalline form vibrated with frequencies that indicated severe distress as he reviewed the intelligence reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The massive amphitheater of the Galactic Council had been hastily reconvened as news of humanity's impossible victories spread through civilized space. "The reports must be in error," declared Ambassador Krell, her blue scales shifting through colors that suggested disbelief. "No species has ever forced the Devour fleet to retreat. No species has ever captured their vessels intact, and certainly no primitive civilization could master biomechanical technology in mere weeks." "The monitoring data is conclusive," replied the floating gas entity known as Consensus Prime. "Human forces have not only repelled Devour attacks, but have begun pursuing the fleet beyond their own territorial boundaries. They are hunting them." The word hung in the chamber like a physical presence. Species that had mastered interstellar travel for millions of years tried to process the concept of primitives hunting the galaxy's most feared predators. "How is this possible?" asked Senator Vell from the Rigel Consortium. "Our tactical analyses showed human technology to be thousands of years behind galactic standards." Dr. Stone's image appeared on the central communication display, transmitted from the human vessel Retribution as it pursued Devour forces through the Centauri frontier. Her appearance had changed since her humiliating dismissal from the council chambers. Gone was the desperate diplomat begging for assistance. In her place stood a woman whose eyes held the quiet confidence of someone whose species had faced extinction and emerged stronger. The council wanted to know what humanity could contribute to galactic civilization, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "Allow me to demonstrate." The display shifted to tactical feeds from the ongoing battle in the Centauri system. Human ships moved through space with predatory grace, their hybrid biomechanical forms defying conventional design principles. Enhanced human soldiers fought boarding actions inside Devour vessels with a ferocity that made seasoned council military observers flinch. But most shocking was the sight of captured Devour technology functioning far beyond its original parameters under human control. Weapons that had been carefully calibrated by their creators now operated with chaotic efficiency. Bioships that had followed precise tactical algorithms now moved with creative unpredictability that made them nearly impossible to counter. "Your genetic modifications should have failed," Chancellor Vorth transmitted to Dr. Stone. "Our biological expertise suggested that human physiology could not support such Enhancements without psychological breakdown. Your expertise failed to account for what we are beneath the surface, Stone replied. Humans aren't just another intelligent species, Chancellor. We're apex predators who learn to cooperate. We're survivors from a world that tried to kill us for millions of years. You awakened something in us that we'd almost forgotten we had. The tactical display showed human forces systematically dismantling Devour ship formations using strategies that violated every principle of space warfare. They attacked from multiple vectors simultaneously, used kamikaze tactics that other species would consider wasteful, and employed psychological warfare against a hive mind that had never encountered enemies capable of inducing fear. "This is impossible," muttered Ambassador Tharn of the Vegan colonies. "The Devour fleet has consumed civilizations with technology far superior to anything humans possessed months ago." "That's your fundamental error," Dr. Stone said, her smile visible even through the quantum transmission. "You keep thinking about what we possessed. You should be thinking about what we became." The display switched to footage of Colonel Martinez leading enhanced soldiers through the corridors of a captured Devour command ship. The humans moved with predatory efficiency that bordered on supernatural, their enhanced genetics allowing them to match alien strength while retaining human creativity and ruthlessness. Genetic modification, biomechanical integration, AI consciousness merger, Stone continued. Technologies you've possessed for millennia, but never dared to fully explore because you were too civilized, too cautious, too concerned with safety protocols and ethical limitations. The psychological risks of such modifications began Consensus Prime, are acceptable when the alternative is extinction. Stone interrupted. That's what you never understood about humanity. We don't calculate acceptable losses. We don't perform cost-benefit analyses on survival. We adapt, we overcome, and we make the tools work regardless of the risks. Chancellor Vorth accessed his tactical databases, running calculations that made his crystalline form pulse with agitated light. Even accounting for your technological adaptations, your numerical disadvantage should be overwhelming. The Devour fleet contains resources equivalent to 43 consumed civilizations. Numbers matter less when you're fighting a war of extinction. Admiral Cross's voice joined the transmission from the bridge of his flagship. Every human in this fleet volunteered for modifications that might kill them. Every pilot accepted neural interfaces that could drive them insane. Every soldier agreed to genetic changes that make them barely recognizable as the species they were born as. The tactical display showed the horrifying efficiency of human warfare. Ships that sacrificed themselves to create openings for their companions. Soldiers who fought with suicidal bravery to secure objectives. Pilots who pushed hybrid technology beyond safe limits because safety was irrelevant compared to victory. "You created monsters," Ambassador Krell whispered, her scales cycling through colors that indicated genuine terror. "We created survivors," Cross corrected. "And now we're going to finish what you started." The implications of his words sent ripples of panic through the council chamber. Species that had guided the Devour fleet toward human space in order to protect their own territories were beginning to understand the consequences of their decision. The Devour fleet will be eliminated within standard weeks at current pursuit rates, reported Dr. Stone. Their biomechanical technology has proven inferior to human-modified versions of the same systems. Their tactical programming cannot adapt to human unpredictability, and their hive mind is developing what can only be described as psychological trauma from repeated defeats. "What are your intentions after the fleet's destruction?" Chancellor Vorth asked, though his tone suggested he already feared the answer. "That depends entirely on the Council's next actions," Admiral Cross replied. 47 civilizations conspired to commit genocide against humanity. 47 species decided our lives were worthless compared to their own convenience. Did you think we would simply forget that? The chamber erupted in panicked communications as council members realized that humanity's victory over the Devour fleet was only the beginning. Enhanced humans with captured alien technology and no remaining ethical constraints about galactic conventions represented a threat unlike anything in recorded history. "We acted according to logical strategic principles," Consensus Prime protested. "The needs of many outweighed the needs of few." "Then you'll understand our current strategic principles," Dr. Stone said, her diplomatic mask finally falling away to reveal the predator beneath. Humanity's needs now outweigh everyone else's. You had the chance to gain us as allies. Instead, you chose to make us your enemies, and what do you want? Chancellor Vorth asked, his crystalline form dimming with defeat. Justice, Cross replied simply. Reparations for attempted genocide, formal recognition of human sovereignty, and most importantly, guarantees that no species will ever again decide that human lives are acceptable casualties in their political calculations. And if we refuse? The display showed human fleets moving through space with deadly purpose, no longer content to defend their borders but actively expanding into territories that had been protected by galactic law for millennia. Then you'll learn what happens when you corner the most successful predator species in Earth's history and give them access to technology beyond their wildest dreams, Dr. Stone said. The Devour fleet consumed 43 civilizations. We consumed the Devour fleet. Would you like to test what else we're capable of digesting? As the transmission ended, the council chamber sat in stunned silence. The primitive species they had dismissed with casual contempt had not only survived their betrayal but had transformed into something that made the Devour fleet look like a minor inconvenience. The greatest military threat in galactic history was now under human control, piloted by enhanced soldiers who had learned to think like predators rather than prey, and they were no longer content to simply survive. They were coming for everyone who had voted for humanity's destruction, and the galaxy was about to learn that making enemies of humans was the worst mistake any civilization could make. The great space station that housed the Galactic Council had never been designed for war. Its elegant spires and peaceful meeting chambers reflected a civilization that had grown comfortable with diplomacy as the ultimate weapon. Now those same structures burned as the remnants of the Devour fleet made their final desperate stand. Admiral Cross watched from the bridge of the Nemesis, a hybrid vessel that perfectly embodied humanity's transformation. Biomechanical corridors pulsed with alien technology, while human crew members with enhanced genetics operated systems that would have been impossible for unmodified minds to comprehend. The ship itself had been grown rather than built, using captured Devour technology and human engineering principles that alien creators had never imagined. Sir, the last Devour command vessel is attempting to use the Council station as a shield, reported Captain Turner, his neural interface allowing him to process tactical data at superhuman speeds. They're threatening to detonate their bioreactors if we approach. Civilian casualties? Cross asked, though his tone suggested the answer mattered less than it once might have. Approximately 50,000 council members and support staff, multiple species represented. Cross considered this information with the cold calculation that enhancement procedures had made possible. The genetic modifications hadn't just improved human physical capabilities, they had altered psychological responses, making survival-based decisions easier to process without emotional interference. Dr. Stone, what's the status of our diplomatic position? Rebecca Stone's image appeared on the main display, transmitted from her position aboard the diplomatic vessel Reckoning. Her transformation had been as complete as any soldier's, though her enhancements focused on mental processing and persuasive capabilities rather than physical combat. Chancellor Vorth has requested emergency negotiations, she reported. The Council is prepared to discuss formal surrender terms. Surrender? Cross smiled, the expression carrying none of the warmth it might have possessed before humanity's transformation. They still don't understand what this is about. This isn't conquest, Dr. Stone. This is justice. The final battle unfolded with the precision of a surgical procedure. Enhanced human soldiers, their genetics modified beyond easy recognition as the same species that had once struggled with basic space travel, boarded the Devour command vessel through teleportation technology that merged human innovation with alien capability. Colonel Martinez led the assault, her enhanced physiology allowing her to move through biomechanical corridors with predatory grace. The Devour creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries fell before, weapons that shouldn't have existed, human engineering applied to alien technology with complete disregard for safety, limitations, or conventional wisdom. Command. Vessel secured, she reported, her voice carrying overtones of satisfaction that indicated successful completion of a hunt. The hive mind has requested terms for cessation of hostilities. Denied, Cross replied without hesitation. Complete elimination of Devour forces, No survivors, no prisoners, no negotiation. Sir, that's genocide. Yes, it is. Cross turned to face his bridge crew, all of whom had volunteered for modifications that made them more effective at warfare and less concerned with conventional morality. The Devour fleet has consumed 43 civilizations. The galaxy considered that acceptable. They redirected that genocidal force toward humanity. The galaxy considered that logical. Now we're applying the same standards they established. The destruction of the Devour fleet was absolute. Biomechanical ships that had dominated space warfare for millennia were torn apart by weapons that violated every principle of their defensive systems. The hive mind's final transmission was a sound that approximated terror, an emotion their collective consciousness had never before experienced. With the Devour threat eliminated, human forces turned their attention to the Council Station, the elegant structure that had housed galactic diplomacy for thousands of years. Now found itself surrounded by ships that looked like the products of nightmares, hybrid vessels that combined the worst aspects of alien biotechnology with human ruthlessness. This is Admiral Cross to the Galactic Council. He broadcast on all frequencies. Your pet monsters have been eliminated. Now we discuss the price of attempted genocide. Chancellor Vorth's response carried overtones of desperation that his crystalline physiology couldn't quite conceal. Admiral, we acted according to established precedent. Strategic resource allocation has always excluded humans from consideration. Dr. Stone interrupted as she materialized in the council chamber via human teleportation technology. Her arrival was accompanied by a full military escort, enhanced soldiers whose presence made several council members visibly recoil. She looked around the amphitheater where she had once begged for her species' survival. The same beings who had dismissed humanity with casual contempt now avoided meeting her gaze. Ambassador Krell, Stone said, addressing the blue-scaled being directly. You justified redirecting the Devour fleet toward human space by claiming vegan lives were more valuable than human lives. Would you care to recalculate that assessment? Krell's scales shifted through colors that indicated fear. The strategic situation has evolved. Perhaps we were hasty in our initial evaluation. Perhaps, Stone agreed. Let me offer you a new evaluation. Humanity now controls technology that surpasses anything in galactic civilization. Our genetic modifications have created soldiers who can fight beings that your species flee from in terror. Our hybrid ships can outmaneuver anything in your fleets, and our enhanced minds can process strategic information faster than your best tactical computers. She gestured to the tactical displays that showed human forces positioned throughout Council space. We are no longer asking for membership in your alliance. We are informing you of new management. The implication sent waves of panic through the assembled species. Consensus Prime's gaseous form flickered with agitation. You cannot seriously intend to dominate 47 civilizations. Dominate? Admiral Cross's voice joined the conversation as he materialized alongside Dr. Stone. No, we intend to lead. There's a difference, though I don't expect species who confuse genocide with logical strategy to understand the distinction. Chancellor Vorth's crystalline form pulsed with desperate calculation. What are your terms? Cross smiled, and the expression was genuinely warm despite everything humanity had become. Simple. Formal recognition of human authority in galactic affairs. Reparations for attempted genocide. Technology transfers, resource allocations, and territory concessions. Most importantly, implementation of new protocols that ensure no species will ever again decide that another species' extinction is acceptable collateral damage. You're establishing a human empire, accused Ambassador Tharn. We're establishing a human protectorate, Stone corrected. Every species that tried to sacrifice humanity to save themselves has proven they cannot be trusted with power over life and death. So we're removing that power from your hands. And if we refuse? Cross gestured to the tactical displays showing the complete destruction of the Devour fleet. Then you'll join them. The choice is yours, but understand, humanity is no longer interested in being anyone's acceptable loss. The vote was unanimous. 47 species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive agreed to human leadership with a speed that would have been comical under different circumstances. Dr. Stone found herself appointed as the first human chancellor, a position that came with authority over galactic policy and military deployment. Admiral Cross became head of the new Galactic Defense Force, commanding fleets of hybrid vessels piloted by enhanced humans who treated interstellar warfare as a natural extension of their predatory instincts. The Council made one crucial error, Stone said as she addressed the galaxy from the Chancellor's podium. They assumed that surviving in the universe meant becoming civilized. Humanity has learned something different. Sometimes survival means becoming more dangerous than anything that threatens you. She looked out at the assembled representatives of species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. We are your protectors now. Not because you deserve protection, but because protecting you serves our interests. You will contribute to galactic society according to your capabilities. You will respect the sovereignty of all member species, and you will never again treat any civilization as expendable. What happens if we violate these terms? Chancellor Vorth asked. Stone's smile carried the same predatory warmth that had become characteristic of enhanced humanity. Then you'll discover what the Devour fleet learned. Humans make excellent allies, but we make terrible enemies. The new galactic order was established with efficiency that amazed even human observers. Enhanced soldiers became peacekeepers throughout Council space. Human-controlled hybrid technology revolutionized everything from interstellar travel to planetary defense, and species that had once considered humanity primitive found themselves dependent on human innovation for their continued prosperity. But perhaps most importantly, no civilization would ever again face extinction because their lives were deemed less valuable than someone else's convenience. The galaxy had learned that making enemies of humans was a mistake no species could afford to make twice. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols, crewed by enhanced soldiers who remembered when their species had been dismissed as worthless. They had become the guardians of galactic civilization, not through invitation but through necessity. The Council had laughed at Earth's plea for help. Now they lived under human protection, whether they wanted it or not, and the galaxy was safer for it.